Be a member of Investigator Group. Investigating an old building in summer with 3 other people. Building was a hospital where they treated tuberculosis back in the day. Abandoned since the mid-70s. Beautiful place surrounded by pine trees and mountains. Old derelict building sticks out like a sore thumb. Start investigating. Lots of graffiti on the walls and messages. It said this place is used by satanic cults to perform rituals and such. Probably just a bunch of schizos role-playing. Place is huge and very cold. Even though we are in July, we all get separated to place recorders and some equipment, walking through a long corridor with niches on the walls. Majority of the niches have been destroyed and are empty. Move on to the second floor as we planned. Enter a huge room that was used as a bedroom and place a recorder on the floor. See someone at the end of the corridor. Turn on the walkie-talkie. Hey, whomever's on the second floor, I'm outside of the bathroom, so get your own place to explore, dude.
I'm in the kitchen. It's not me. I'm outside, dude. I'm with X in the kitchen as well. I'm getting the camera ready.
Shit, huge bricks, because I'm sure I saw someone, and best case scenario is a hobo living here. Immediately go back to the kitchen and regroup with the rest of them. Tell them there's probably someone sleeping in the other building. Decide to keep exploring the rest of the hospital, and leg it if we see someone else. We're now moving together in case something happens. We'll all hear footsteps several times and a faint thump, which could be anything really. Nothing else happens until late noon. Grabbing our stuff to get back to civilization. Need to get the recorder from the second floor. Go back with other dude. Retrieve recorder, turn it off, and head back to the kitchen. Other dude stays silent the whole time and looks worried. Grab rest of our stuff. Throw everything inside the van and wait for the dude to come back with the van keys. While we're waiting, I turn the recorder on to see if we got anything. After several minutes of static, we can distinguish several voices saying something. Here's what we mostly agree the voices said.
I'm ill. What am I doing here? Don't go in. The evil is there.
As soon as dude gets back with the van keys, we leave. We all ask him why he's being so silent. Just as we leave the dirt and hit the road, he tells us he saw people. Right? I told you there was someone living there. They must have been the ones speaking to the recorder. What a bunch of fuckers. Dude says one of the 2 people he saw wore a white hospital coat. The other one he couldn't distinguish but had something white on as well, like a huge blanket. Both were standing on an outdoors corridor facing the wall. Pig related is the closest thing I could find that resembles the area.
Interesting. Where exactly is this place? I made a thread last summer about the scariest place I ever visited, and that was Montbello Psychiatric Hospital. I urbex a lot and went to a shitload of supposedly haunted places, even after dark. But no other place was so scary as some of the parts of this dilapidated nut house. Mainly the basement. And I visited during a sunny summer day, midday. The hospital is known mainly because it was the first hospital to use electroshock therapy, and one of the patients was Benito Mussolini's secret son. There were definitely signs of real cults and rituals all around, and since I'm into these things, I can tell shit's serious because it wasn't no 666 pentagram hell saying, too edgy for me bullshit. There were real magical sigils and stuff like that. I found a big eviscerated animal in the basement, and they were covered in occult symbology. I'd nope the fuck out of there fast. I can tell you that in Italy, there's a serious presence of real cults and occultists there, more so than any other country I visited. Belgium is the second close.
It was an abandoned hospital northeast of Spain, built in a place called Agramonte. Hospital is called Sanatorio de Agramonte del Moncayo. You can look up extra stuff if you're interested in Spanish. There's plenty of stuff online about it, and there's some creepy stuff going on there, even if you don't believe in the paranormal.
Thanks. It's peculiar that there isn't a lot about it on the internet in English. I think Montbello is similar in that regard. I've explored Villa de Vice, and there isn't anything weird or interesting happening there, even though there's so much information on it around the web and it's branded as the most haunted house in Italy. I mean, it's a pretty scenic, creepy looking place, but nothing truly scary as Montbello is. I wonder if the most paranormal places in the world are actually the least known by the public, or kept under wraps by being disguised as something else. Have you ever heard about the Luciferium in Bergs? It masquerades as a touristy attraction online, but I can tell you that people running it are truly into some bizarre shit.
From what I could understand of what I read on Montbello, it seems pretty similar to what I wrote, yeah.
Have you ever heard of Luciferium in Bergs?
No, I haven't. I'll do some research later. Seems pretty interesting.
Also, what is your investigator group? Are you in Spain?
It's not my investigator group. I was Greentexting as if I was part of the group and relating what I found online. Sorry if it seemed like it was my group. Most of the places I go explore, I do on my own with my sister from time to time. She loves creepy places as well. It's kinda hard because there's not a lot of abandoned places in Spain. I mean, There's a lot of derelict places, but most belonging to families or banks, and lots of the most famous ones have either security or cameras and police. While being mostly useless for most cases, are pretty fast when they're informed of someone trespassing. That's my experience at least. Don't know how popular urban exploration is in Spain, since I've never been interested in sharing it with larger groups. Here's another story. This one may not be as creepy, but it made the news back in the day. Live in a building in Zaragoza, September 1934. Sleeping one night. Wake up because I heard loud laughter. Can't tell where the laughter is coming, so head to the front door. Neighbor next to me is also outside. Several neighbors are awake because of the laughter, which has been going on for several minutes now. Nobody can tell where it's coming from. Some people say it's coming from inside the walls. Couple months later, young servant is getting food ready. Turns the fire on. Loud scream. Don't turn that on! You'll burn me! More screams. Lady and her servant run outside. Police intervene. After some research, they decide the servant is faking all the screams and tell her to spend a couple of weeks outside the building. Screams stop for a couple of days, but voices come back. At some point, the police is doing research with lanterns, and when they turn the lanterns on to leave the place, they hear a voice. Light, I can't see. Voice keeps taunting the neighbors. Servant comes back because it obviously isn't her. Case turns so popular it even appears on the Times. At some point, the voice, now referred to as El Duende, word equivalent to Nordic elf or goblin, but here used as a precursor to poltergeist, threatens to kill every neighbor on the building. Investigators are convinced the servant is to blame because she's some kind of unaware ventriloquist. People go to the building en masse to hear the Duende. Medium is contacted, performs a seance, and ends up dying right at the end. Neighbors are evicted a couple of times to avoid more deaths. Voices and screams stop overnight. Nobody knows what happened to this day, though to be fair, no serious investigation was conducted, and it peaked in fame, so a lot of the stories that were told could be fabricated. It is also the first time in history a paranormal case was officially researched by the authorities in Spain. I'll boast the last one for now because I'm going to do some exercise and get something to eat. Keep the thread alive if someone's interested. I'll be back in a couple of hours. Place is called Barranco Badojoz and is located in the Canary Islands. Several stories are well known in the area. First one involves a group of miners in 1912, mining in one of the galleries. Suddenly, wall falls down, opening a new passage. Miners enter the new, wider area. Miner realizes there are more people inside than the number of people that entered the cave. Tells the rest of the group. 3 of the miners that are in the rear, deeper inside the new area, start glowing. Rest of the group starts walking backwards towards the entrance. Glowing beings try to approach the miners. Miners run back to the police to inform. Second story. Same place. Parents tell their daughter to go grab some pears from a tree in the Barranco Badojoz. Daughter never comes back. Whole village looks for her for days until they give up. Several years later, decades even, depending on the story, kid comes back to the village to her parents' house. Hasn't aged a day. Same clothes she left the house with when she went to go grab the pears. Kid tells the family she was tired and sat to rest under one of the pear trees and fell asleep. Says a huge glowing being woke her up and carried her to a cave. Says the thing didn't seem threatening to her. Goes down some stairs until they reach some kind of garden where a couple of other glowing beings are standing. They talk to her and feed her, and after a few hours, they take her to the entrance of the cave. Late 90s, early 2000s. Guy goes to the Barranco with a couple of investigators to spend the night. They hear and feel something big flying over their heads. Feel a sudden sense of dread. Point the lantern towards the wing, flapping noises. See nothing but a huge shadow, darker than the night itself. The thing squawks or croaks, maybe something in between. One of the researchers takes a picture. Pic related, it's what it showed. Apparently, the area was researched by the SS because they were looking for superior beings. It said a Nazi sword hilt was found in the area, and it depicted one of those beings. You can look it up if you're curious about it. Funnily enough, some of the most famous paranormal places in Spain are linked to Hitler or the Nazis. Maybe to give them more credibility? Don't really know. Forgot to say, pic is related to previous post. Is allegedly one of the white glowing beings talked by in the previous stories. As I said, I'm out for a couple of hours. Keep the thread going and feel free to post lesser known stories from a country if you like. Forgot to say, this thread is inspired by the Eastern countries' paranormal stories that are posted here from time to time. I always wanted to talk about paranormal stuff from my country because their most famous stuff isn't necessarily the creepiest. Be famous investigator in Spain. Very polarizing. People either hate him and laugh at him or love him. Investigating paranormal cases in military bases. Case was in the 70s in a base called Talavera La Real. Military base suddenly wakes up to the sound of gunfire. Entire base goes on DEFCON. Units are deployed to guard from whatever is attacking. Vehicles are deployed as well, but nobody knows what's going on. They're not even sure who's firing against who. A couple of vehicles are shot at. Base higher-ups are livid and end up finding the culprits. 3 guards tell them what they went through. They're on duty with their dog, a German Shepherd, when they hear a loud moan or scream. What the fuck? Go to investigate behind an area where fuel is stored. Dogs barking like crazy, even howls from time to time, which is not unusual in that breed of dog. One of the guards says he hears a slicing noise, as if someone was opening and closing huge metal scissors in the air repeatedly. See a green light inside the base. They're all holding their weapons, pointing toward the light. Dog is let loose, runs towards the light barking. My apologies for a small pause, but I deem it necessary. For those wondering why all the fuss because of the green light and the scream, the 70s were a pretty turbulent time in Spain. In 1975, Franco died, and a terrorist group called ETA and Grapo were rampant, so everybody was pretty much on edge. The 3 guards did in fact think the green light was a sign of a terrorist attack on the base. Guards start seeing something emerge from the green light. The 3 of them agree on the same thing. A tall, humanoid figure is walking towards them. They call it walk, but the thing doesn't have feet. One of them says, as if it didn't have time to materialize from the legs down. It advances towards them, extending its arms in the form of a cross. They need little more evidence and start shooting at whatever this is. That's when the base goes crazy. Another patrol manages to find these 3 guys. They see the green light, but nothing more. When the situation goes back to normal, they start conducting an investigation on what happened. The 3 guys tell the same story. Apparently, Dog dies some days after the incident. The 3 of them fall into a coma. One of them goes partially blind. Another shows early symptoms of Parkinson. And the 3rd needs to be hospitalized in a psychiatric hospital. Although a thorough investigation was allegedly carried out, none of the reports can be found anywhere, which means the documents haven't been declassified or they were lost, whether accidentally or not. Famous Spanish investigator in charge of the incident 20 years later finds out about it through a nurse and doctor that were present while one of the guards was being examined. Both agree he showed no signs of dementia or paranoia, was the sanest person on earth, but health starts quickly going worse in a matter of days. Investigator finds out another guard had shot himself before the incident because he said a tall creature was tormenting him during the night. Investigator spends the night in a hotel near the base, sees things during the night. One of the nights, he sees the shadow of a headless torso hanging from the doorframe and pointing at him. I decided to post this incident instead of an eerily similar one because I remember shitting bricks when I read about it as a teenager. The other one was called Ava 4. You can read about it online, although I don't know if it's famous enough to be translated in English. This one is probably the most well-known amongst the stories I've posted, since it was featured in a film called Veronica a few years ago. I've decided to include it because it's very close to me, considering we went to the same school. Although she must have been a few years older than me. Teenage girl called Estefania, living in Madrid. Grandma, who's always been a very toxic individual, dies, but kinda curses the rest of the family because he pretty much hated all of them. With his last breath, he says, "Since I cannot harm you in this life anymore, I'll do it in the next one." Don't give him too much credit since they didn't hate him yet, didn't especially love him either. Gets into occultism with a few friends, bring Ouija board to school, sneak between classes and perform a seance in a vacant classroom. Before being able to finish the seance, a teacher catches them and breaks the board. A pale, dark smoke emerges from the board and is inhaled by the girls. In the upcoming days, Estefania's health gets worse. Starts showing signs of epilepsy, getting completely rigid on one occasion. Doctors are unable to diagnose her despite her suffering several attacks throughout short periods of time. One of the doctors concludes it's some kind of breakdown caused by stress. Her health gets worse and worse during the following months. Starts seeing dark figures into her bedroom at night. She describes them as someone dressed in a black, tight suit that also covers his head. Shadow tells her to come with them. One night, she's sleeping with her sister and the door opens. One of the figures comes in, but it's different this time. The figure's on the floor, walking like a reptile, almost glued to the floor. Starts crawling towards her, stands up, stares at her for a few minutes, and leaves as suddenly as it appeared. Estefania ends up dying in strange circumstances. During the first few days away, her death, weird stuff starts happening to her family. Her mother is cleaning the house when she hears someone inside Estefania's bedroom, which is closed. Opens the door and finds books, magazines, and clothes on the floor, as if someone had been looking through her things. The following months are even worse. Doors opening and closing, disembodied voices, kids being pushed around the house. Kay starts gaining fame, and this is when we hear about it at school. During one night, the family tries to block one of the doors that's opening and closing by itself with a huge marble table. Remains closed for a bit, but suddenly the table moves and the door opens again. Things are thrown around the room. One of the items is a framed photo that falls next to the mother. The photo shows Estefania, and as soon as the mother grabs it, the photo, but not the frame, starts burning until the whole face is consumed. The father starts seeing the same figures Estefania saw before dying. So does the other daughter. The figures crawl around the furniture and then disappear, occasionally lunging at them. A group of investigators gets contacted, and a medium goes to the house to do some research while being televised. Allegedly gets possessed by the grandfather. There's a video of that moment on YouTube if you fancy some weird acting. Medium says a fight is going on between the spirit of the grandfather and Estefania, while there are other beings present. They capture some EVPs of a voice saying "Mama" and "Don't trust Grandpa." At some point, they call the police at night and describe what's going on. The father says a crucifix is spinning and turning upside down. He puts the mother on the phone, who says she's been talking to a dark figure that always stands at the end of the corridor. One of the officers decides to go to the house and brings 2 or 3, depending on who's telling the story, other policemen with him. The officer finds a family outside the house and goes with them inside. They wrote what they saw in the report, which I'll try to translate as good as I can. As you imagine, English is not my first language, and there might be some mistakes. Amidst a mysterious and strange situation, and in being seated with the whole family, we could see and hear one of the cupboard doors opening and closing in a completely unnatural way. While in a shock, we could hear a loud noise coming from the balcony, where we could find nobody. Moments later, we would watch in awe as the small table where the phone rested, and on a knitted tablecloth especially, a brown stain appears suddenly, which Z2 identifies as drool. During the ensuing investigation of the rest of the rooms, we could notice a crucifix in which Christ was separated from the cross. On the poster behind the crucifix appeared some marks that could be identified as claw marks. While doing a bit of research, I found out the mother was the one who told her kids to make up everything that happened inside the house. Although this is one of the most famous paranormal cases in Spain, the real thing is quite interesting as well. See if you could find the interview 2 of the kids did on a Spanish newspaper. It's very telling. Anyways, this is all I'm writing for today. Tell me if you enjoyed, and again, feel free to post whatever you deem interesting from your country. I'll be around for a while answering some questions, in case they come up. Just wanted to get some fresh stuff out, since X is lately becoming a place for schizo posting and RPGing, and slowly losing the paranormal and mysterious aura it had a couple of years ago. Cheers.